What up? What up? Good morning. It's your man Sean P coming in live. This is the Sean P Experience. I am excited and fired up for this amazing guest I have. With no further ado, y'all see the man on the screen, the man of the hour, Dr. Ian K. Smith. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let me give you a formal introduction that you deserve, right? So we have now. This is a man with an extensive resume, so I got to shorten it down for the sake of the show. I'm gonna give you some hot spots, right? Dr. Ian K. Smith was appointed by President Obama to a second term of the prestigious President's Council on Fitness, Sports, and Nutrition. He has appeared extensively on various broadcasts, including Oprah Winfrey Show, The View, Dr. Oz, Steve Harvey Morning Show, The Talk, Larry King Live, Anderson Cooper, and there's more. Dr. Smith is the author of 15 books, 8 of them being New York Times bestsellers, including The Clean 20, Blast the Sugar Out, Super Shred the Big Result Diet, Shred the Revolutionary Diet, and there's more. He is the author of the critically acclaimed The Blackbird Papers, the 2005 BCALA Fiction Honor Book Award winner. He is also the author of Overnight, and now we are here to talk about the follow-up, Eagle Rock. Welcome, Dr. Smith.
Thanks, man. I'm glad to be here. It's excited to talk to you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we're going straight into it. I don't want to spoil the book for anybody. Could you give us a little elevator pitch of Eagle Rock for those that's curious?
Sure. 77-year-old Elliot Cantor, a Chicago billionaire, is found in his secret apartment near Lincoln Park on the north side, bound to his bed in a compromised position. His son is talking to the commander from the police force late at night after discovering his dad. And the commander basically says there's only one guy who can deal with this quietly, effectively, and without restrictions. And that guy is Ash Kane. And so in the middle of the night, our guy, Ash Kane, gets the call from Commander Roy Burke to get dressed and come down to this apartment building. And the ride begins.
So this is the fourth book of a series. Tell me, what was the spark? When you were sitting around watching something or just relaxing, doing something, and the spark came for the concepts to the plot of this story? What was that spark for you?
Well, first of all, for the series in general, I really wanted to create a character that I had never seen in books or on the screen before. And I just wanted to have that guy come to life. And it was kind of, my imagination. I grew up watching guys like James Bond, detectives like Columbo, and private investigators like Magnum PI. But I felt like I wanted a new age guy who was hip, who was younger, who was smooth, who was fearless, who was tough, who was very comfortable in his skin, whether he is on the tough west side of Chicago or in the affluent north shore of the town. And so I wanted a guy like Ash Kane. So he didn't exist, so I just created him. And I wanted to. I'm a selfish writer. I write like I like to read. So I like to read series. I love to, see a character develop. I also like fast action. I like pace, good pace. I like plot twists and turns. So Eagle Rock is that type of book. In fact, the whole series, from The Unspoken to Wolf Point to The Overnights and now Eagle Rock, those are the kind of books that they are. They're fast paced. They keep you guessing to the end. And my spark always is, I would say always, but often is based on something I see or hear in the real world. And so this case, I do know a couple of billionaires and very wealthy people lead very different lives, as we now are learning from the situation. So I've had a peek, not into that life, but I've had a peek into the life of billionaires. And so this kind of Eagle Rock was kind of spawned by my experiences as well as my understanding and hearing of certain lifestyles that people of great affluence lead.
Right. So a lot of my audience are writers, and they're on the cusp of being an author themselves. So I do like to ask craft questions when it comes to character development. Ash Kane, I feel like in most stories, the author have a sprinkle of themselves in these characters. So Ash Kane has an extensive vocabulary. He always quoted philosophers and whatnot at any given time. There's affinity for golf, crazy about golf. Love expensive cars and breaking down car details. what parts of Ash Kane are yourself, and what part is totally like just you just sitting there playing with it? But percentage wise, would say percentage?
Yeah, I would say Ash is probably 60% me and 40% of what I would like to be. How about that?
60%? You said 60?
Huh?
You said 60?
60.
That's high.
Yeah, it's high. It's
Wow.
high. I mean,
You a pretty dope guy then, Doc.
well, let's see. I love words, and I love unique words. I love golf. I'm a golf fanatic. I love cars. And so, listen, when authors write characters, it is not uncommon for them to infuse their own life or something personal into that character. There was a great quote that basically said that authors tend to write what they are familiar with. And so, yeah, I mean, I infused some of my own characteristics into Ash Kane, but I also kind of gave him more than what I have because I wanted him to be a guy who had all these different aspects. I didn't want him to be two-dimensional. I wanted him to be 3 and 4-dimensional. And I think that's the kind of character he is.
So in writing this story, there's more than one way to go about this. Do you think about the plot first and you're trying to flesh out the characters around driving that plot, or is it really character focused and now you've kind of making that plot to bring these characters to life? What's your approach, Doc?
Yeah, that's a great process question. So for all authors have their own way of doing things, right? There's no right or wrong way. Whatever is your way is the way. My way is I spend about 2 to 3 months on average thinking about the story. I don't write an outline. I think about the story. And so I typically start with the beginning. What is it about? What's the opening? Like for example, I was having dinner with some friends down in North Carolina the other weekend, and I left the restaurant because they didn't have any juice, they didn't have any bottled water, and I wanted it. So I told them, guys, I'll be right back. So I left the restaurant in this small North Carolina town to walk down the street to see if I could find a store where I could buy something. On the way back, I said to myself, what if I never came back? What if I just left and just never came back? So that is the opening of a book to me, right? And it's going to be one of my openings. But all the time, my mind thinks about how to begin a story. So I find a beginning. I then start populating the idea with characters. Characters are very important to me. So I think about the characters, what they look like, how they talk, and how they sound, what they're wearing. I just feel and see these characters. Then I go through the story. This is how I want to open up. This is the middle point. This is the end point. When I have those tent poles in place, then I sit down to the computer and then I can start writing. I don't use an outline. Some authors need outlines and like outlines. I don't like outlines. I like to have the freedom to move where I want without being, restricted by keeping to an outline. And so, it just happens that way. Like, for example, I'll give you another. So my next book is already written in the series. It's called The Alderman. That'll be out next summer. So I'm working on summer 2027 right now. 2025. Summer 2026 is what I'm working on right now, right? So I just had this idea of a woman walks into Ash Kane's office and she says, I just shot my husband. That's how we're going to open it. I just shot my husband. And,
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. And so these ideas are just nonstop in my head. My head is always teeming when I see things and hear things all the time.
Do you have what they call an ideal file where you're filing away these things you're coming across, random stuff, you just filing it away until it's time to go back? I spoke about that months ago. Do you have an ideal file like that, Doc?
Yes. And anyone who's a writer and wants to be a prolific writer, I would recommend you do that. I do it on my phone. I have a file where I keep of ideas, characters, character names. Sometimes I take pictures of people who I say, this would be a great character. So yeah, I am constantly keeping a file of things, and I've gone back, and it's helped me, because we live in a fast-paced world, a fast-paced life. You have one idea a week ago, you forget it. So I have
Yeah.
this file where I can go back whenever I want to.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, talk about the importance of having these crime fictions and things we've seen in other people before, other cultures. The importance of having a black representation of a person that's highly intelligent, well skilled, and they're doing all of these things that we've only seen other people. The importance of us having that. Talk about the importance of that representation, Doc.
Well, let me answer that question, because Mr. LA's question is, so is Ash Kane your highest potential,
Yes,
someone
sir.
you're actively trying to become, writing to manifest? This goes in and blends in with your question. Um, I don't know if I'm trying to manifest Ash Kane in my life. I'm pretty happy with who I am and what I'm doing. I'm not perfect, but I have a good life and I'm happy. But um, he is a high potential. And I wanted to create an African American character who had qualities and attributes that we don't typically see of us in books and on the screen. So I wanted someone who was highly skilled, who was intelligent, who was tough, who was handsome, who could quote Shakespeare one minute and Kendrick Lamar or Biggie the next minute. I want that, because, by the way, we exist in those forms. We as African Americans are a diaspora. We have people who deal drugs. We have people who fly planes. We have people who run companies. We are all of that. And no one thing defines who we are. So I wanted to create a character that says we are also this. And so some may say, well, I don't know anyone like that, but people like Ash Kane, or who have Ash Kane's attributes, they exist. And I want to introduce that to the world at large.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We saw the movie came out recently, Rebel Ridge. I don't know if you had a chance to see it or not on Netflix, but you have this, this black guy, ex-military, doing all the stuff that we saw Jack Reacher and Jack Ryan, those kind of guys doing. You saw the response to that. You saw that the numbers go crazy behind seeing us kick some butt, you know, us win.
Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I have seen it on my to view list that comes up my Netflix on the screen, and I'm going to watch it, by the way. But and you're right, we typically will see a Jack Ryan doing it from Tom Clancy, or we'll see a Jack Reacher from Lee Child. We will typically see non-blacks in those roles, and I think, and by the way, we as black consumers of entertainment, we still watch movies and shows in which we are not the main characters. We've always done that. We've had to do that because we didn't have those roles. But I also feel like now we are in a space where we can have these roles, and we should write these roles. We shouldn't not write these roles because we don't think Hollywood will accept a black person playing these roles. I think those days are over. Yes, it's still a hill to climb as far as getting Hollywood to see us in these roles, and for Hollywood to believe that viewers and readers will believe us in these roles. That's another hill to climb, but the hill is not as steep as it used to be, and the hill is still worth climbing.
And we saw a guy like Michael B. Jordan play No Remorse. That character, he pulled it off incredibly believable and well, in my opinion. You know.
Yeah, I feel like our actors have gotten a short shrift all these years in Hollywood, because our actors have been stereotyped and typecasted and all kinds of things that have limited the belief that they could live with wide ranges of abilities. You take some of what I think are some of the great actors, who are not black, like Dame Judi Dench, to me is a great actress. Helen Mirren is a great actress. Gene Hackman back in the day was a great character actress. So you have a lot of these great Tim Robbins, by the way, I think is a great actor. But we also are great actors. Morgan Freeman is a great actress, a great actor. Angela Bassett is a great actress. One of my favorite actors is Jeffrey Wright. Jeffrey Wright is good in every single role he plays. He's believable. He becomes the character, and you can see it and feel it. So we too have talents. It's just a matter of Hollywood allowing us to see enough scripts, to being asked to play these roles, and giving us some shine.
Another wonderful question from the chat. I had this for later on in the show, but we'll do it right now because we're here. Has Dr. Smith considered optioning Ash K series for TV? So I know a lot of things are becoming TV series now. The books are being picked up. What do you think about that, Doc?
Yes, so the series has been optioned. It's been the rights have been purchased by a producer,
Okay,
and so
okay, here we go.
yeah,
Breaking news.
but let me tell you all something. Hollywood is a very very slow machine. It works very slow most of the time, and it works particularly slow for us. But there's a big runway between getting your project optioned and purchased, which is nice, by the way. That's an accomplishment in of itself. I don't want to demean that, but there's a big runway from that to actually making it to your screen, whether in theaters or on your computer or TV at home. So we'll see what happens. There are lots of twists and turns. Trying to get a book made into something is just like writing a mystery. It's the same thing. It's up and down. It's characters in and out. So we'll see what happens.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Back to a process-driven kind of question. I'm always curious about the research process, and in this book in particular, you have a BDSM aspect to the book, and that's a whole universe to itself. So the question is, how much research did it take you to get it right? To do things correctly, say things correctly, and some of your characters even break down certain things as they're talking. They give us some background in this world. What was that process like, Doc?
So when I wrote Eagle Rock, right? The I think about covers, by the way. So to me, the packaging of a book is extremely important, right? Yes. So when I wrote it, I think not just about the characters and the content, I think about the packaging. Okay. But when I get into the character and the content, research is important to me. You don't have to research fiction. That's the beauty of fiction. Fiction is basically make believe. You can make it up. Nonfiction obviously has to be based in reality. But for fiction, I still like to do research. So I like to research certain concepts. So BDSM, which is part of the book, I've never had any experience with that personally. I've seen stuff on TV, but in order for me to get it right and to get the real feel of it, you have to do research. And I think some of the best authors and the great stories, authors can write about topics and subjects they are unfamiliar with, but they do it best when they research. So talking to people, which I did, talk to people about it who are in that world, talking to doctors about it, reading about it, all these kinds of things you do as an author to try to get yourself close and familiar with the topic so that when you write it, it's believable, right? That's the key. You want it to be believable. And so I have no personal experience with that lifestyle, but I understand it a lot better. I get it. I will also say this, that people are very judgmental. And I think that people should stop being so judgmental about alternate behaviors. Let's just call it that. And maybe we should stop calling them alternate behaviors. Maybe what we should do is say that we as human beings are very unique and individualistic, and therefore something I do or like may be different than what you do or like. And so rather than calling my behavior alternate, it's just part of the huge range of human experience and human activity. Let's do it. And that way we take away the demeaning or the connotation when we use the word alternate, that it's something that is suspicious or sketchy or weird or strange. No, it's just something different. You like driving certain type of cars. I mean, I like that car. I like this type of car. It's not alternate. It's just part of who we are. So researching this for Eagle Rock, I think also helped me develop as a person and helped me change my perspective about what we consider normal and abnormal. Is there really a lot of abnormal? I think a lot of what we consider abnormal is actually not abnormal. It's just different. And different is sometimes not a bad thing.
So along with that research question, I know everything can't make it into the book. Everything can't make it into the show. There's the cutting room floor, as they say. What is something that's not in Eagle Rock that you wish they could have got in there for some reason they couldn't go? What's the aspect that's not in
Well, I think that there's a side of me that would like to write with more graphic aspects to it, right? Like, I would like to describe a scene that tends to be very risque, right?
there? Okay,
And
okay,
and I think
okay.
that I think as a writer that's fun to write. I think as someone who consumes entertainment, that's interesting. It's different. I think that people are interested in things that are not always part of their life or that they can't imagine being part of. And I think I would love to be able to write scenes and situations that may be a little more risque. And I may do that maybe in a different genre, maybe write
Yeah,
some
what it sound
romance
like?
stuff. You know what I mean?
Okay, what it sound like? What it sound
Yeah.
like?
Yeah, we'll see.
Um, if you can or can't say, are you asked to like tone down? Like, do you present something first and then they're like, nah, maybe it's too much, maybe tone it back? Is it kind of like that kind of thing going on?
No, 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 no.
Okay. Yeah.
My editors have never said this is too much. This isn't right. No, they go
Okay.
along with me. I mean, I've never written something that was kind of way out there. I'd like to, by the way. I mean, as a
Okay.
creative, I'd like to
Yeah.
try something that's very different, very far away from who I am as a person and the life that I lead. I think that's the fun of it. And so maybe when I do that, they may say you have to bring it in a little bit. We'll see what happens, but I will definitely try to flex that creative muscle.
Let's talk about Chicago, the great city of Chicago, Chi-Town. So Chi-Town is a character within itself in your story. You go into great detail with Chicago. This is the skyline, by the way.
Yes. So
So I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
Tell us. I'm from a smaller place. Chicago, New York, California, some of these places that's bigger, they pride themselves on the skyline or the certain bridge or something. Tell us the significance of that for you, Chicago, the skyline, and break that down to us. Why is that so important to you guys?
Yeah. So yes, this is the Chicago skyline here that you see, right? Um, this is our Lake Michigan. This here is a real statue that is actually part of the story. I don't want to give it away, but this is a statue in Chicago that's part of the story towards the end that makes a difference. Um, I wanted Chicago to be the setting because I believe that really good books are able to place readers in the setting so that you can feel like you're there. My goal and my job is to make you feel like you know Chicago. I want you to hear Chicago, smell Chicago, see it. And I want it to be a character because the city itself is interesting, just the city. The amount of segregation that exists in Chicago, the amount of corruption that exists in Chicago, which is, by the way, the baseline of my next book, The Alderman, which is based on corruption in Chicago. Everyone knows Chicago's corrupt. It's part of how business is done here. But also that it has great restaurants. It has great sports teams, though the White Sox didn't do too great this year. But it also has, in my opinion, and I've traveled most of the country, I got to tell you, all states I've been to, it has the most beautiful skyline because of the backdrop of being on the lake. It is a city that's built on the lake, and it's a big city on the lake, and it's a big lake. And these are just natural things, this lake business that you can't make up. And so while I love New York City and New York has an awesome skyline, and I'm a New Yorker at heart, it's taken me a while to admit to my Chicago people that Chicago does have a prettier skyline because of the lake. That's what makes it rising off that lake. And so, yeah, I take pride that it takes place in Chicago. All the books are based in Chicago. And by the way, it's not uncommon. Different authors have different series that take place in different places. Michael Connolly, for example, who writes Bosch, he writes his character in LA. Parker, who is no longer with us, wrote his character in Spencer in Boston. Harlan Coben uses Jersey in New York. So it's just a place that I thought would be really great for a story. And I also want people to understand Chicago is much different than what the media portrays.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So this question for that, right? whenever you're writing Chicago or any city in that great detail, do you ever fear a person that's never been there, like they're not going to get what I'm saying? I'm naming streets, I'm naming buildings and restaurants and landmarks and historic people, even like it's an actual a history lesson in there for those that know about Chicago. Do you ever fear a person won't get it, or do you not even think about that?
Yeah, I'm going to answer your question and answer. By the way, I love this live. Mr. LA has another question. I'm going to answer that in a second.
Yes, sir.
No, I don't feel like they're not going to get it because part of my job and what I set out to do is to make people get it and feel it and understand it. So the reason why I'm giving you the streets and the direction that they go and the restaurants and what they look like and what is so that I can set the scene for you, right? It's like a painting, and I'm painting this canvas so that you can see it and draw your own conclusions for it. So I never think about people not getting it. I don't do anything that's highly esoteric inside baseball. I do things. This is where Grant Park is, and in Grant Park, these are the museums and the aquarium. So it's more kind of informational rather than kind of confusing people. So I feel good about that. Mr. LA says, as a creative, do you express your fiction writing in other forms of art? That's a really, really good question. I don't paint. I wish I could paint because I would express it that way. But what I have done is I have hired painters to paint things for me, and they have been related to my fiction. So I have a couple of paintings in my house that are reflective or part of kind of my book, a part of my fiction experience. So that was a really good question, actually.
Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the chat. Always a highly intelligent crowd. I'm so proud of my chat, man.
They're great.
Awesome, awesome. So I want to ask you about the Black Press. Back to Chicago Defender. In a few of your books, you mentioned press a lot. Your name in certain papers a lot. And in this book, we're talking about Chicago Defender. And I'm always harping on Black Press. Tell us that don't know the history of the Defender, if you can, and the importance of Black media now.
Sure. I mean, the Defender here in Chicago and the Amsterdam News in New York are two of the oldest Black newspapers that have existed. The Defender for years has been the true voice of issues concerning us and publishing works written by us that the mainstream media would not publish or would not include. So it's a little sad what has happened to the Black press. A lot of Black press has gone away. I was just in the car the other day listening to a commercial for the Chicago Defender. It's no longer in print that much. It's mostly online, which, listen, that's newspapers in general, so you can't say that. But the Chicago Defender had an iconic building on Martin Luther King Drive, which I mentioned in the book, and they sold it to somebody else. And so that building, which was the hub or one of the important hubs in our history of Black press, unfortunately is no longer under ownership of the Defender. But I mentioned the Defender in the book because I want to, it's an ode. It's an ode to our history. It's an ode to something that has been important to us. And I want to do that. I definitely want to do that. And I do that in all my books. I put things in there, for reasons. Many things in my book are very intentional. Very little is unintentional.
Yeah, just researching for the past 3 or 4 years. I love old press. And it seemed like we had thousands, literally thousands of Black press back in the day. And it's like we have so much more technology and so many more scholars and all this stuff we brag about now. It's like, why we have so much less Black press, man? It almost upsets me sometimes thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully there might be a resurgence of more Black press. Now you can do it easier with everything being so digital and people being able to write and shoot things remotely. I think there's a possibility that we could have a resurgence of Black press. It just will be in a different form than what it has been traditionally. By the way, let me just say for those who are in the chat, if you have questions I don't get to because we're almost done, you can definitely send me a message on Instagram My Instagram is at Dr. Ian Smith. Spell the doctor out, IAN Smith. I answer my own messages, so feel free to send me a message if you have any questions about this or anything else. And oh, by the way, in January, I'm publishing my next health book, which is called Eat Your Age. Okay, and
Wow.
this is about all the things you need to eat, tests you need, best exercises for you, all the things you need for your decade of life. So 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s plus, whatever decade you're in, what you need to eat in your 30s may not be what you're really needing in your 50s and 60s. So this book breaks everything down for you so you can live a longer, better quality of life. It's going to be one of my big books next year in January. So, and by the way, if anyone picks up a copy of Eagle Rock, I will send you a free copy of Eat Your Age. So
let me get that, Doc. Let me get
yeah,
that.
yeah. So if you pick up Eagle Rock, send me a DM on Instagram at Dr. Ian Smith. Say, hey, Dr. Ian, I got Eagle Rock. Can I get a free copy of Eat Your Age? And I'll take care of you.
Hey, that just happened, y'all. Y'all see it in the chat. That just happened on the show live. And I want to say, Dr. Smith, whenever that book come out in January, man, come back to the show. Let's talk about it. I'd love to bring you back, man. One last thing before we get out of here. So you mentioned the food and health. I have one health question. So in the book, you go into the food in detail. Are you a foodie, Doc? Are you a foodie on a low? Are you a foodie?
Yeah, it's interesting. I always have an image of a foodie being someone who's really like, they know all these kind of unique ingredients and where they're sourced. Maybe my definition of a foodie is a little too highbrow, but I love food. I love the culture of food. I love understanding food. I like to eat good food. I like cooking. I'm getting better and better as a cook.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. Last night I finished my health book for 2027 last night, actually. And I have a certain dinner that I finish. Every time I finish a book, I have a traditional dinner that I make for myself. And that dinner is the same dinner as the character in my first book. It's his favorite meal. My first book is called The Blackbird Papers. The Blackbird Papers. So here's something fun to go out with.
Okay.
Anyone who has the Blackbird Papers or has read the Blackbird Papers, my favorite meal is the same as that character's, and I eat it for sure after I finish a manuscript like I did last night. Send me a DM of what that meal is in the Blackbird Papers, and I will send you all of the Ash Cane series.
Wait a minute. Say it again, Doc. Please say it again. Slow it down, please.
Okay. The first person that can find out from the Blackbird Papers, my first novel, what that character's favorite meal is that he was going to eat on the night that he won his award. What was that meal he asked his wife to make? If you can find that meal and send it to me in a DM, I will send you all 4 books of the Ash Cane series.
That's 2 of them right there. 2 out of 4. So the doctor's over here giving us homework. I'm going to get on it today. I'm going to get on it right now. The question was, the holiday season coming around. We're in the fall right now. What can we do, having our mind going in advance to like avoid certain things in the holiday season? We want to eat, we want to enjoy food with the family. What can we do to still maintain our physique and not big our back, as they say these days?
I'm going to say 3 things. 1, guys, listen, COVID is here to stay. And respiratory illnesses and viruses are going to go heavy during the winter. The reason why we have a spike in these respiratory viruses during the winter is because most of us are inside in crowded places. So it's easy to transmit from one to the other. It's not that the cold is making these viruses grow more. It's that we are around each other more in confined areas, and therefore we spread it more. So hygienic, practices, cleaning your hands all the time, be careful touching public surfaces, use your shirt or something to touch door handles, elevator railings, elevator buttons. All those things are really not the healthiest of places to be touching. So avoid those things as best as possible. Also, make sure you're staying hydrated. Make sure you're getting your vitamins D and E and C. Those are very important. And be consistent. I mean, as the colder weather comes in, get your workouts in. You don't have to work out an hour a day, but working out 30 minutes 3 or 4 times a week can make a big difference. It's all about consistency. So do some strength training, particularly women. You got to do some strength training, your strength training and your cardio, do a nice mix. But all that stuff I'll give you and some in my new book, Eat Your Age, when it comes out in January.
Thank you very much. That is my time with Dr. Ian K. Smith. It's been a wonderful interview. It's been everything I hope for and wish for. Thanks for coming on the show and saying yes. And we'll look forward to doing that homework. I'm getting on it today. I will be inboxing you later on this evening. I'm going to find that answer.
Okay.
I need the full series, man. Thank you very much, man. Shout out. Congratulations, brother.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me, and I look forward to coming back.
Oh, there it is. Peace, peace. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for coming to the Storm Peace Spirits.